Great. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Monte-Angel Richardson. I am an institutional researcher at the Office of Institutional Analytics, OIA, under the Provost. And today we're going to be talking about RStudio, specifically RMarkdown, and how we can use it to tell stories about data. Just some general housekeeping. Since we're on Zoom and there's a lot of us, I didn't enable video or audio sharing for this course. So if you want to talk to me, please use the chat. I may ask a couple of times if we're on the same page, if you could just give me a thumbs up or a hand raise, that would be really helpful. All right. And yeah, please keep talking in the chat. Please keep telling me who you are. It's great to see where everyone is located on campus, and hopefully we can continue building a network of people who use R and RStudio. All right, let's get started. All right, so today we're going to be talking about RStudio and RMarkdown. And before we get started, I like to talk a little bit about why I'm crazy about R and think it's a great platform. As you can see here, R is an open source and therefore free statistical software, and it's really great at analyzing, obtaining, and visualizing data in a lot of different languages. A lot of people think that R is hard to learn, and I have experienced that myself, honestly. But I do think that it's possible to teach R in a way that's accessible, and I think a little bit of knowing R code can go a long way. And if we follow this basic formula and continue repeating it for tasks, we can really get places with R and get over that steep learning curve. And this graph is a little bit hard to see, but as you can see here, it's pretty straightforward in terms of having a question, getting your data, cleaning it, visualizing, analyzing, and then making some conclusions. And we're going to go through all of those steps today, if you can believe it. All right. And then why RMarkdown? RMarkdown is a format for writing different kinds of reports within R, all different kinds. We'll take a look at a few of them, but some include PDFs, slideshows, HTML documents that can be published to the web, and files and others. The thing that's cool about RMarkdown is that they're reproducible and you can use multiple languages in the RMarkdown environment, including Python and SQL. So let's take a couple of looks at what people in the R community have been doing. And I'll post all of these links into the chat too, because there are a few that you'll need to be able to see on your own. All right, so here are some examples of R markdowns in different forms. As you can see, they take the form of documents, interactive documents, which are super interesting and cool, like this, where we can see, ooh, I went too far. Different places in Michigan. I don't know exactly what this one is detailing. Oh, you can't see my screen? Oh no, here we go. Thanks, Heather. How's that? Can someone give me a thumbs up if they can see? Okay, cool. All right, so then I'll go back. Okay. All right, so this is the R markdown in, place where they store a lot of the different kinds of documents and examples. As you can see, there's HTML, PDF documents, Microsoft Word, interactive documents, and even dashboards similar to Tableau and those kind of environments. And I wanted to take a look at some of these interactive maps that are pretty cool. Looks like here, sales reports is being displayed, and using RMarkdown, you can do a lot of different things. You can create charts like this, geographical charts, kind of these box charts where you get more information. And so RMarkdown is a really great way to get your data and your data stories out to the world. And I'll put that link in the chat so everyone can take a look on their own. Right. Okay, so this is what we're going to be going over today. We're going to be starting RStudio first, of course, that's the first step of anything in R. And then opening and using RMarkdown. I'll go over how to do that within the RStudio environment. Then we'll be loading some libraries and some sample data sets that will come from RStudio itself. And then we'll be looking at our our data, trying to answer some questions that we'll go over, and then doing some graphing. And finally, you'll publish your first RMarkdown using RPubs. All right, so here are some suggested prerequisites for this course. We don't have a lot of time together, and unfortunately, I'm not able to see what you're doing. So it's really important that we have some familiarity with R. It would be great if everyone has already pre-downloaded R and have installed it to their computers, and set up an account with RPubs, which I will put a link in the chat. It only takes 2 to 3 minutes to set up an account, so it would be great if everyone could do that. And yeah, like I said, just have some basic experience, very basic, coding, graphing, and using data in the R environment. So let me grab the RPubs link. Can I get a raise of hands? Who has used RPubs before? Or just tell me in the chat. Not me, okay. Anyone else? Nope, okay. Lots of notes, cool. All right, well, it's pretty easy to use. What I'd like for everyone to do right now is go ahead and create an account in RPubs using the link I just put in the chat. I'll just go through, it only takes a couple minutes to make an account. You just register, use your name, email, whatever username you want, and then your password. Mine's already taken because I have an account. So once you do that, just give me a thumbs up and we'll keep going. And let me know if you have any questions in the chat. Yeah, I saw your thumbs up, Lori. Thank you. Got it. Cool. All right, I'll give it maybe 1 more minute. You can also continue to sign in while we keep going through the presentation. And while we're waiting, I'll talk a little bit about what RPubs is. That might be good to know. So like I was saying, there's a lot of avenues where you can easily publish R markdowns. RPubs is kind of the R hub for all of those. So as you can see here, these are just dashboards of different users who have recently published an R markdown. It's a really cool way to build community with other people interested in R, and just get your data and your data viz out there. And it's pretty cool and exciting to see it for the first time. Like, oh, I made that, and here it is online and can be looked up by anyone. So lots of people are doing cool stuff with RPubs. All right, we're gonna keep going. So the first thing that we need to do is open RStudio. So let me know that you have RStudio downloaded. If you don't, this might not be the course for you. We're not gonna go through how to download RStudio today, but I will put this link in the chat of how to do so for folks who are interested. And once installed, it should populate as a desktop icon or in the start menu. So open up RStudio and then we will keep going. And this is the page that I follow to download RStudio. But I'm hoping that everyone has that already. All right, let me know if you have it open. Open, cool. Thank you, Todd. Todd's helping me out today. I appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna take that as a sign of yes, we are ready, we're excited. Okay, all right, so opening RMarkdown. These are the steps we take to open RMarkdown. I'll do it in my R environment so you can see, but basically you just start with saving a text file as an RMD or opening an RStudio RMD template, which is what we're going to do, and then saving it as what you want it to be called. This is what the screen will look like. All right, let me get out of here and then I'll show you how to do that. So here's my R environment. Let me know if I can't be seen or anything, but so to open an RMarkdown, you go to this little white sheet of paper with a plus sign on it, and you click the one called RMarkdown, and then you give it a name that you want to, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call mine Tech Days at Home Presentation. And you want it to be an HTML format. So you can choose a lot of different formats for RMarkdown, but for this, since we're publishing to RPubs, which is online, we're going to be using an HTML format. And then you just press OK, and it should pop up. All right, let me know once you have that. Once we get into the RMarkdown environment, I probably won't check as much to see that we're all on the same page, just because I have to keep going back and forth. But I hope that if you do have questions, let me know in the chat. But this is going to be pretty easy to just follow along with what I'm doing. Okay. All right, so there's a lot of things to look at in our Markdown. So let's take a look at what some of those things are. This is the RMarkdown I prepared for our course, but this is what it looks like when you first open it. Here is the header. This first part here is called the YAML header. And why it's called that is because it is a set of key value pairs at the start of your file. So it corresponds with the file type that it is. But basically you want to just stay in this box to change whatever the name is. It gives you a name when you open it, but you can customize it with the date, the author, and the title. So go ahead and do that now. As you see, I have put mine as Tech Days. I'm going to change it to Tech Days at Home Presentation, then my name and the date. But you can really put it as whatever you want. Cool. All right, so other things inside are, I'm going to keep flipping to the one that you see so you have an idea of what you're looking like. So everything that happens in the RMarkdown environment happens inside what are called code chunks, which is what we have right here. A code chunk is what you have to, everything has to go inside it. If it's not inside the code chunk, the code itself, it comes out as text. So here, the code chunk, just all you have to do to make a code chunk like that is put 3 of these asterisks, these curvy brackets, I never know what to call them, and then you just put R, comma, and then you can decide whether or not you want to include the code when it publishes so that you can see the code or not. I don't want my code to be seen when I publish, so I'm going to put false. So you just put include and it'll populate for you, and then false. And then to close your code chunk, you just put those same asterisks. And as you can see, it's a little bit grayer than the other box, which means that we can run the code inside this chunk. Great. So there's some syntax things to consider when using RMarkdown that translate into different kinds of text. We're going to take a look at some of those. I wish it didn't do that. All right, so here are some basics of syntax in R. To change the headings and headers size, you put a number of hashtags. One hashtag, obviously the biggest, and so on. And then it has some more tips here on how to create dashes and spaces. But the main thing we're going to use here is just hashtags. And you can also use stars to bold, strike throughs, etc. inside the R environment. And those can be used inside of the code chunks or outside of it. Go back to. So as you can see here, I've started loading some libraries into my code chunks. If you've used R before, there's a good chance you already have these libraries installed. If you don't have them installed, it's pretty easy to just get them from your side menu here. So then you'll just search for the library that you want. But if you have them installed already, all you have to do is put library, knitr, library tidyverse, and library ggplot. These are the three we're going to use to create our RMarkdown. And the significance of those can be found here. So knitr is used to generate the report, essentially, into any form, HTML, PDF, any of those. Tidyverse is used for data visualization tools, and ggplot makes really pretty graphs. And then after that, we're going to load a data set that those of you who have used R before are probably painfully familiar with, called iris, and use that to kind of get our bearings on making visualizations and doing data analysis in RMarkdown. So here are the three libraries. I just put them in here, and I'll do it again so everyone can see. And then you just want to run the code chunk. And to do that, all you have to do is press this green arrow on the side. And as you see, when I hover over it, it just says run current chunk. So you just press that and it will load the libraries. And the way that I know it worked is that a green line on the side appears. If it didn't work, if there was an error or something, like didn't recognize that package, it would come up red, like that. So that's the language, the basic language of RMarkdown is you want green, you don't want red. And if you have red, just like anything in R, you got to find out what you mistyped to figure it out. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. Next, we're going to load our data set. So here, we're just loading an R-based package, so there's no need to direct to anything on the computer. All you have to do is put data iris in quotes, and it should load. You don't need to upload any packages for that either. So I'm just going to run that to make sure it's set. It is. I know that it is because I can see it over here in my values. All right, I'm pausing a little bit just so everyone has a chance to catch up with me. I know it might be hard to look at my screen and go back to your R environment. Cool, okay. So next what we're going to do is start learning some things about this data set. Well, the first thing that we have to do is view the data set and see what's in it. We want to find out what the variables are, what's being measured, what's included, and what's not included. So to do that, in a new code chunk, you just like before, use the asterisk, make the R echo equals false, and then put view in parens iris. And I am going to run that code chunk, and we will see that the table appears. So from this table, I'm going to ask for your participation a little bit. What are some things you can tell just from looking at the table? Very basic. Five variables. Yeah, Todd. Great. What else? Repeating data in species. Yep, yeah, so there's a certain number of species and we'll be able to tell what they are from just scrolling, and we'll also do a data viz to figure it out. 4 numeric and 1 character variable. Wow. Awesome, Heather. 150 cases. Yep, 150 entries. That's right. Yep, those are great first things. And they seem really small, but that's the kind of stuff you have to do to get familiar with a data set, is just getting an idea of what's going on. I'll have to catch up. I'm having tidyverse issues. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Maria. Yeah, I'm sorry if you're having issues with the packages. I hate that. But to install a package, all you have to do here is just press install. I'll just show really quick. And then you have to type it in and then just press install and it should work. But that always happens, and no problem catching up if you need to. You can also just follow along with my screen. All right, so great first stuff about the data set. So let's keep going. We want to learn more. What else we want to learn is some basic statistics about the data set. So we want to know, of course, the minimum, the mean, all of that stuff. So to do that, all you have to do is create a new code chunk. I named mine something. As you can see, I called it rlearn. I just like it to be named something. You don't have to do that. It can just be R. And then again, echo equals false. And then I just did summary, and that will give us some basic summary statistics about the data set. And this is what comes up. For each of the 4 variables, it gives us some information, gives us the minimum number, first quartile, mean, median, third quartile, max, and then how many species there are. And it looks like there's 50 of each flower species: Setosa, versicolor, and virginica. So that's pretty useful information, but in my opinion, I always like to know what it looks like. And that's what we're going to get into next. I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint so we can get some more information on how to do data viz in R. And I'll put these links into the chat, but these are 3 really great R resources for figuring out how to make visualizations as great as they can be in R. So let's take a look at some of them. This is a really great document made by one of my former advisors at the University of Michigan on how to choose a chart with the variables that you have. So I'm going to put that into the chat so everyone can take a look at it and keep it for future reference. But basically, it's giving you some information about when to use continuous variables, when doing one thing at a time, just looking at one variable, or doing 2 things at a time, and what it might end up looking like in R. So as you can see, R can make some really simplistic graphs, but it can also make some really cool detailed graphs like this one up here. It can also make interactive graphs, and it can make things that are presented side by side. I'm a big fan of these scatter plots with the smoothing line because it can show you more of the trend between 2 variables rather than just normal scatter plot. So you can take a look at this for your future reference when doing graphs in R. The other part, of course, that's hard about doing anything in the R environment is knowing the code for it. So this is kind of a complicated, but actually not that complicated, cheat sheet of how to build graphs in R provided by RStudio. It can give you some good information on the basic mechanics of coding in R and making graphs using the ggplot package. I'm going to go over some basics for this course when I go back into my RMarkdown, but this is a good reference if you want to make more complicated graphs, charts, anything like that. All right. And then third, a lot of fun is picking your colors in R, but to do that, you need to know what codes correspond with what colors. This can be a good cheat sheet for that as well, so that when it comes time in the code to write down what color you're using, you know exactly what you're picking instead of just picking at random, which I find myself doing kind of a lot. And I'll put that in here as well. All right, so let's see. All right, enough talking. Let's start doing some of this viz. As you can see here, the first thing I'm trying to do is make a box plot using petal width ranges by species. So I want to know what the petal width ranges for each species are, and I think a box plot might be a good way to go about that. So to do that, you want to put in plot with the parens. Iris is here because I'm calling the data set. The $ connects the data set to a specific variable. And the variable that I want to use is species. So that's what I have here. So that will be on the y-axis, I think, I'm guessing. And then this will be on the x-axis. But you can also clarify that by putting x equals and y equals, but you don't need to. If you don't, it will just pick for you. So the second variable I'm using is petal width. And then I've chosen to use a rainbow color scheme here, using rainbow parens 9, because I want it to look a little bit pretty. So let's take a look at what it looks like. Cool, so now we can see, well, actually, I'll ask you, what can you tell from this viz? I know people might be catching up also. What can we interpret from this visualization? Virginica has the largest range. Yep, looks like Virginica has the largest range of petal widths of all the flowers. That's true. What else? Versicolor and Virginica overlap with width ranges. Yeah, that's true. It seems like the Versicolor and Virginica petal widths are bigger than Setosa. Anything else? Was everyone successful in getting their viz to populate in RMarkdown? Yes or no? What do the 2 dots over Setosa represent? That is a good question. Does anyone want to venture a guess for that? These 2 dots right here is what Rick is asking. Outliers. Yep, that's right, Elizabeth. Those are the outliers for that species. So for some reason, the general range is between 0.5 and lower, but there's a couple here that are outside that range. Cool. All right. I want to pause real quick. Does anyone have any questions before I keep going? Any technical issues? Okay. All right, so let's make something else. Let's separate my code chunks here. So the next thing, oh, I have another question. What is the black line, mean or median? Good question. I believe that it is, since it's not in the center for all of them, I would assume that that is the mean petal width for each species. Good question, Linda. Thank you. All right, so now we're just going to make a simple pie chart of the flower species. Because of our summary statistics above, we already know that it's going to be a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 pie chart. But if we didn't know that, this would be helpful for finding out how many of each species are in the data set. So to do that, all you have to do here is put pie parens table. And then just like before, you call the data set R iris, and then you put the $ species, which is the variable we want, comma, color equals rainbow 9. So I'm using rainbow, but using that color chart I sent you earlier, feel free to pick whatever you want. Let's take a look at how it comes out. Yep, pretty much what we would expect. not super interesting there. 1/3 of each. But if we had a bigger data set, which we often do in our work, and we needed to know how many were in each category, whatever that might be, this could be helpful for that. Not super helpful for other variables. So if I tried putting in petal length here instead of species, this is not going to give us a lot of great data, which is why it's important to pick a visualization that's going to be good for your data set. So for this pie chart, really the only thing in this data set that would be useful is species. Any questions about this pie chart? Yeah, pretty straightforward. All right. So let's move on to something else. Here in this code chunk, as you can see, I'm commenting in, oh, I should mention that. So in our Studio and RMarkdown, you use hashtags to put comments explaining what you're doing. It's a really important practice, especially when you're working with other people who have access to your code. So here I'm just explaining briefly what I'm attempting to do and the kind of chart that I'm using to figure it out. So I want to know sepal width times length in a scatter plot and see how those two variables match up. So to do that, here I have plotted sepal width and sepal length using this little, I never know what this is called, this squiggly line to connect them together. And then again, drawing from the data set, this is just another way to call the data equals iris. After the comma, I have added a couple of other features that we haven't seen before, and these are to put labels on each of the axes. So XLab is going to be called sepal width, YLab is called sepal length. And again, I haven't selected which variable will go on which axis, so that's why R will just call it immediately. Sepal width will be X, sepal length will be Y. Thank you, tilde. Okay, I never knew that's what it was called. All right, thanks, George. Okay, let's take a look at what this is and try to get some information from it. All right. Here we have sepal length, sepal width. I have a couple questions here in the comments. First one is, can we determine if there is a relationship between sepal length and width from this viz? Best guess is fine. Does not appear. Sure, Todd. Why not? Not a very strong correlation, says Brett. Yep, I think that, yeah, same thing, Jing, and also hi, Jing. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a clear trend between sepal length and width. And it's kind of hard to tell, right? We don't have any kind of trend line here. Any other thoughts about that? Okay. All right, so in the next viz, I am going to attempt to add something to this visualization to find out if there is a trend, because it does appear like there isn't one from this, but we can't really tell just from this visualization. So what we're going to do is add a smoothing line, or a smoother, as they call it in the world of R. So it's basically the same code as before. As you can see, I've just rewritten it in a different way. So here I'm calling the ggplot package, calling the dataset iris, and then using the aesthetic line of code. And basically, you see this a lot in your ggplot images, and that gives you the ability to define your x and your y axes, add color, add labels, all of that with inside the aesthetic parentheses. I don't add any labels for this one. I'm just wanting the smoothing line, so it stops there. And then I add this geom point, which is what I used before to create the scatter plot. And then I'm adding this geom_smooth, which creates the smoothing line. So let's see what happens when we add the smoothing line, if we can tell more about this relationship between sepal width and length. All right. So there it is with the line. What do people think when they see this? What are your first impressions as data scientists? What do we see? Not getting any thoughts in the chat. Are we still catching up? Oh, Heather, it's a somewhat curvilinear in nature. Yes, exactly. There's some kind of, maybe if there is any kind of relationship, it's not straight across. Any other first impressions, observations? Yeah, so I think that we can stick with that. I think that our first, at least my impression, is that there still is not a strong connection or association between sepal length and width from viewing this graph. I would want to know more about some of them, like the cases here. I might try in future iterations of this viz to separate by species of flower and learn a little bit more about if that changes the relationship. Maybe add some other things in here to get a better idea. I'm going to stop there with demoing and give you a chance to do some of these things for yourself. So down here, I've added a couple of other data sets that I'd like for you to just do the same process with, of finding a question, using the data, taking a look at the data and the variables, and then making some very basic graphs. So I have two data sets that you can choose from here. The first one here pertains to US arrests by state. The second is a data set about diamonds, both preloaded into R, both super different, and you'll probably do very different things with them. So go ahead and load these two data sets now. Whichever one you want to use, you can just comment out the one that you don't want to use or just not put it into your code like that. I'm going to try doing stuff with the arrest data set, and we can just work on that on our own in our own code chunks for a couple minutes, and then we will publish our first RMarkdown. And please let me know if you have questions as you're making your own graphs in the chat. But I've set out some basics here of what we did before. So I'm going to be talking while I do it so that you have an idea of, so you can remember what we did before. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to view the US arrest data set and take a look at what's in it. So for mine, it's broken down by state, and it gives the percentages of murders, assaults, and rapes per arrests, I think. And then I think this is the amount of people in the urban population that have been arrested. I'm not exactly sure about that one. I probably want to know a little bit more. So the next thing I'm going to do is get some of that statistical information like we did before, using the summary. Yeah, I can't always remember if it's summary or summarize. I'm just going to scroll back up and look at what I did. Summary. And summarize the US arrest data set. All right, so it looks like minimum percentage for murders is 0.08, median 7.2%, mean is pretty close to that. It looks like there's some difference between the median and mean in assaults. Okay, so I'm going to try to do some visualizations on this. I'm going to make a new code chunk. RViz arrest. Let me do that. And I'm going to try to graph something. I'm feeling kind of uncertain of what to do, so when I do that, I just look at what I did before and see if I can do it with the same data set. I'm not sure a box plot will work with something like this, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm interested to know what other people are doing right now. Are you using just let me know, are you using the diamonds data set or the USRS data set like me? What are you finding? What's interesting? Here I'm just changing around the variables. So I'm going to look at arrest, murder, and for assault. I have no idea what this is going to look like. Okay. It didn't come out as a box plot. That's interesting. R chose what it wanted to do based on the variables I gave it. And it will do that if you don't specify the type of viz that you want it to create. So here it chose for us a scatter plot looking at assault and murders. I don't know how to interpret that super well, but that's a thing when you're starting out, you can just start playing around and see what you find. Brett, can you provide the link to this RStudio session? It came a little late. Yes, definitely. I am recording this session and I don't know exactly how to send out the link to it, but I will try to do that before we finish. Thanks, Brett. All right, I'm gonna try to make one more viz with this and see if I can do something different. I'm gonna take a look at this smoother line and see if I can copy it using this arrest data set. Anyone else finding anything? Anyone else getting somewhere with these? Oh, awesome. Thanks, Elaine. It looks like this will be available on the Tech Days site. It's so weird doing these over Zoom because I just don't know if everyone is following along. So if you're finding that this is useful, you know, if RMarkdown is working for you, if you're able to get something with it, please let me know either in the chat or give me a thumbs up. And here I'm just, again, moving things around, seeing what I can find, kind of demystifying the process of exploring data for you. It's not, you don't always have to know exactly what you're doing right away. That's what visualization is for, is to kind of get an idea of what your data set is, especially when you're working with large volumes of data like we often do at OIA. It's good to put it into a viz and kind of see what it looks like before deciding what you want to do with it. Oops, looks like I did something wrong. And when I started out, I was getting that red line all the time. So if you're getting that over and over, trying to make your vizzes, I totally understand. It really just takes practice. Using those links I sent is a great way to get a handle on some of these basic structures of coding in R. What did I do? Typo axes? I don't know what that means. This happens all the time. Assaults not found. And this is, sometimes you look to see what you did before. This is troubleshooting in R at its best. You look at to see what you've done before, look to see what other people have done online. Because R is open source software, you can find so many great links and information from other users who have experienced the same errors as you, which is probably what I would do if I had more time and was really trying to solve this problem. But since I'm not, I'm just gonna look at what I did before and see what's different. I was just wondering if we had access to the code. Yeah, so Brett, all these code files are part of the R Studio environment. You might have missed that if you came in a little bit late. So you don't have to connect to anything like you normally would do if you were loading in your own data. These data sets are preloaded into R. I'm still not sure. No S. Oh, that's exactly why we work in teams. Okay, so Kayla pointed out that all I was missing was the S at the end of assault shouldn't have been there. And that's the kind of thing that you just, if you're moving too fast in R, you're likely to do. Oh, and this is actually a pretty interesting curve line. There does seem to be some kind of an association between murder and assaults. If I was going to keep going, I would probably want to separate by state by doing some data transformation, selecting different states or different regions, and see if this trend still occurs in different kinds of areas. All right. We only have about 8 minutes left, so I want to move us on to doing the main thing of this, which is rendering and getting this published to RPubs. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. That's what we just did. We did it on our own. So now what we're going to do, I keep forgetting to go to the slide that I need to go to, is we're going to render. We're going to render to HTML to publish on RPubs. So there's two ways to do that here. You can either run the RMarkdown render code. I don't always like to do that because sometimes it doesn't work. So today what we're going to do is we're going to knit, which is the cute art way of saying of tying the whole document together. So it lets us know that it's ready to be rendered. So I'm going to do that, and I hope that you'll follow along. So to knit in R, I've already ran all my code chunks and they don't have any errors. So I know that in theory, it should be ready to be rendered, but knit will give us the final say on that. So to do that, the knit button is right here with a little knitting needle and some thread. So you want to click on the arrow, and then we are going to be knitting to HTML. So I'm going to click knit to HTML, and then R is going to run through all of the code chunks to make sure they're ready to go, and then give me the final yes at the end. So you can kind of watch that process and then go ahead and follow along. Down here in the console, it's giving me information saying that it's been halted, and I don't know why. Error in parse web. Duplicate label. Okay, so that's one of the problems with labeling my chunks here, is that they tend to, if you have them named the same thing, R doesn't like that. I'm just going to take out some of those names that I put in. And see if that helps. All right, let's try again. All right, now it's processing the file, and it will go through everything super fast, hopefully, at the bottom of the screen. And then it gives me a preview here in the corner of what it looks like. I'm gonna get the chat back up here so I can see if anyone's talking to me. Oh, Todd, you did murder and urban population. You got a curvilinear line. Interesting. That would be interesting to explore more. Cool. So mine looks kind of messy because I didn't do the best or most fine-tuned job of creating my titles and everything, but here it is. This is what it will look like when we publish it to RPubs. So I want everyone to go through and knit their document now to HTML and just give me some kind of indication that it worked for you, and then we'll move on to publishing it to RPubs. Anyone able to get it to knit? sometimes errors will occur if the code is not inside the chunks. If, like you saw with mine, I named my code chunk something twice, the same name, or if your code is not working for whatever reason, like mine was earlier when I was trying to make that viz, it will stop the knitting process, and then you'll have to go through and find what went wrong. Someone let me know when they're able to successfully knit. Okay, got it, Lori, thank you. Yay, Jing. Worked, but not pretty. Yep, this is a quick and dirty for sure of what R can do. It's not gonna look like what we saw earlier on those really pretty viz, but it is kind of cool to just see it, see like, hey, I made that, and see it online if you haven't seen it before. Cool, so a couple people got it. Anyone else? Yeah, when I started out with this, I just remember getting so frustrated because I kept trying to knit over and over and these little errors kept coming up. But as you can see, mine came out this time, like Todd said, it's not super pretty, but it exists. It does get easier if you just keep following the same steps when exploring your data. Using RMarkdown and R in general can be a lot more straightforward. All right, so since we only have a couple minutes left, I'm going to move us on to publishing. Little reminder here, we're going to be rendering to HTML, like I said, and publishing online to RPubs. So if you haven't already, take a moment to create an account with RPubs. I put a link in the chat earlier, but you can also Google it. It'll just probably be rpubs.com, I think. And creating an account just takes a couple minutes. All right, so this is what we're going to do to publish. I'm going to show it, but we're just putting it online where it'll be seen by everyone. If that's not your ideal preference, you don't have to publish. Having an HTML is pretty fine on its own, but we're going to go ahead and publish it to the web. All right, so to publish, you want to hover over this blue kind of wind looking icon here. And if you click the drop down, it'll give you the option to publish. So I'm going to press publish. On my version, I'm a little bit worried about this. I don't know how it is for all users, but it gives me the option to publish to RPubs or to RStudio Connect. Give me a thumbs up if you see the same thing or just an okay. How to load packages first. Okay. For RPubs? I didn't know you had to upload RPubs as a package. For any pub. Oh, okay. All right, so Todd is pointing out that you'll need to upload the RPubs package if you haven't done so already. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to get out of my publishing window, go to packages, press install. Looks like you have to, I think that it might be the published package. I'm getting people talking to me. No, curl package, it was forced. Okay, so it looks like it will get you to publish, get you to install the package when you press publish. So you can do it that way too. And it looks like the package name is curl. Okay, so you would press that, press install. I'm going to do it. And then down here in the console, it just shows you that it worked. Takes just a few seconds. And then it tells you in white, worked, great. So then, once you have your package installed, you should be able to publish to RPubs. Let me know if you're getting any errors. I know we're running out of time. So I'm going to just keep going. So I just press the RPubs button here, and then it tells me a little bit about what RPubs is. Press the publish button. Only rendered documents can be published. So looks like I need to knit again because probably because I downloaded that package. Cool. Same thing. Go here. Publish. Click knit or preview. Then click the publish button above. Render document. I did that. So it looks like I'm having some problems rendering, of course. I have to find out why mine isn't working. Can you view the HTML and then copy paste that into your own web templates? Yes, you definitely can. Oh, and check out what Elaine is saying in the chat. Make sure that you complete the survey on the Tech Days schedule page. If you do, you're welcome. You might receive a $100 gift card, so that's pretty cool. But to answer your question, Lynn, yes, you can do that. I'm going to maybe just knit right now so that you can see what it looks like. It's not popping up, but it pops up usually from the side. Out of this side window, you should be able to see it. And it should pop up in another window. It's not for me. Something's going on with my R environment. You're welcome. I know we're running out of time, so if you have to go ahead. I really wanted to get us to the point where we're publishing. It looks like I'm having some errors that I'm going to keep troubleshooting. But keep your RMarkdown if you've made it. And then when it comes time, you can publish it using your RPubs account. It's usually not this convoluted or complicated, but the basic steps are just knitting and then attaching your RPubs account to your RStudio environment. And then it's usually just a one-click to publish to RPubs. For me, looks like some rendering problems are going on, but hey, that's the beauty of doing things live, right? But thank you all for being here. I really hope that you learned something about RMarkdown and this was helpful for you. It's kind of hard to, normally I'd like to interact more and see what you all are doing and come by and kind of look at your screens, but obviously we can't do that here. But thank you for coming by. If you want to stick around, you can watch me get frustrated trying to figure out what's going on. But other than that, thanks for coming. Keep going to Tech Days things. It seems like it's a really great event. You're welcome, Judith. You're welcome, Todd. All right, let's see what I can do. Publish. Only render, I did render it. OR. Okay, let's see. You're welcome, Maria. Thank you for being here. And it says it worked, so what's the deal? In the Office of Institutional Analytics, some of my coworkers are here. They can tell you this is what we do all day, is figuring out what little thing is going wrong that's making it hard for us to do what we want to do. Oh no, Maria, I think I have to troubleshoot my entire RStudio installation. Yes, that's likely. I was worried about that as well. Not usually, sometimes when you download RStudio, something happens. Because it's open source, something happens where it's not quite doing what it needs to do. So I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope that I can publish this onto my RPubs account. Oh, I should show that and put that in the chat. My RPubs account is here. If you ever want to look at anything that I'm doing, including this demo, I will eventually get it published to RPubs. You'll be able to see it here and get a run through of everything that we just did. Looks like people are filtering out, so I'm going to stop struggling with R and say goodbye to you and just keep these links up here for future reference. These are things you can refer to in the future to continue having fun and struggling with R in equal amounts and RMarkdown, some examples of documents that we looked at, other articles, their blog, Twitter, and then my RPubs is just rpubs.com/Monte-Angel. I'm looking forward to reviewing your presentation later. You're welcome, Maria. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Thanks for being here, Jean. Just gonna say goodbye to everyone while they leave. Feel free to go if you have to. All right, I'm gonna end the meeting, everyone. Thank you for being here. Like I said, this recording will be available on the Tech Days website. Check it out. I hope that you learned something here and have a good rest of your day.